They're just idiots. This is vanity. This is more showing off.
How do we get to this place?
It's at the core of the whole progressive mentality. It is obsession with the self. If you look at these ICE protests.
Yeah, you're a Nazi!
Do you see them like, sorry, that's so terrible. It is a performance. It is acting out guilt rather than feeling it. They have cast themselves as the main actors. The immigrants themselves are irrelevant. They don't derive any sense of meaning from their nationality, except in the negative.
What do you mean when you say the Great Replacement Theory, and do you think it exists?
The bottom line is pro-immigration is also connected to professed self-hatred in the West. If we are not willing to give birth to and raise another generation, then other people are going to take our place, and we deserve it.
Has the UK been colonised? Before we get into this interview, I just wanted to say that we have noticed that more than half of our regular viewers are not subscribed. If you want to support the Winston Marshall Show, all you have to do is press subscribe. If you do that, we can have more phenomenal guests exploring the issues you want to hear about that the mainstream media won't touch. But without further ado, on with the interview. Lionel Shriver, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and speak with me. And congratulations on A Better Life, your new novel, where you explore the hot topic of immigration, which I want to explore with you in this conversation, specifically a book about a family who take in an immigrant in the States, and the family itself are divided on whether they want to do that, and you explore the differences there. What I was hoping in this conversation to do with you, as there is much talk about sort of the economics of immigration or the politics of immigration, I actually want to explore the different attitudes between progressives and conservatives on immigration, how it's become a moral issue almost opposite, sort of two opposite sides of the same coin from. And it's the same problem in America, it's the same here in Britain. And I want to sort of explore that, the core ideologies at play, the core emotions at play, right down to the bottom if we can get there. But for more framing, if I may, this week, or rather last week, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the owner of Manchester United, just got skewered in the press. Did you see this?
I did.
He said, the UK has been colonised by immigrants, really, hasn't it? And he got attacked by pretty much the entire establishment, including the Prime Minister, told to apologise. Rare that the Prime Minister tells people to apologise. He hasn't told anyone to apologise about the grooming gangs yet. Marco Rubio in his Munich speech also brought up migration. I want to explore that. So before we get into the sort of dividing lines, is Sir Jim correct? Has the UK been colonised?
Of course. You know, if you take the same number of Britons, white Britons, and you transport them to any other country outside of Europe, it's going to be called colonization. In fact, it would be called settler colonialism, apropos of Israel. But for some reason, when it's people arriving here, you can't use that language. And again, it's partly, this is just a linguistic issue. The word is charged. It's used to demonize British history, and therefore you can't use, the wrong side is using that word. So that side can't use that word except with a sense of shame. It can't use, the right cannot use that word with accusation. So, this is basically a silly word game, and basically you can't. I mean, the bottom line is you can't say anything negative about immigration. So this is just another iteration of that.
Yeah, you can't say anything. But it's curious. I think you're pointing to there, which is when the left do it. And they have done on the tube. I mean the London Underground for our American listeners. There are posters celebrating colonization in reverse. That immigrants are coming to Britain, and this is their opportunity to get one back, get their revenge. And there are political commentators here celebrating. Of course, it's colonization. It's our time now. There's a moderately well-known far-left commentator called Ash Sarkar who openly claims not to be British, or has openly claimed not to be British, and has said of the London becoming minority white that, yes, lads, we're winning, as in the minorities are winning now. So it seems that when the left do it, it's okay to be pro-colonization, but if the right point out a problem, that's a great taboo.
Oh, yes. Well, the left conventionally talks out of two sides of its mouth on this business. And this is also the case in the U.S. On the one hand, if you tout the so-called Great Replacement theory, and you're concerned about the diminution of the native population, then you're a racist, and this is deplorable. You can't use the word invasion. And on the other, these same people are busy celebrating the idea of white European populations becoming minorities in their own countries. That this is a wonderful thing. That this is more diversity, and therefore the good people are winning out against the bad people. And you can't, you would think you couldn't maintain both those positions, but somehow hypocrisy never bothers these people.
You say the Great Replacement theory there. Do you think that, what do you mean when you say the Great Replacement theory, and do you think it exists?
Well, I have a character in my book who says it's not a theory. It's just a fact. I mean, there is an element. I mean, I don't think it's a conspiracy from on high exactly, but demographically, when you've got a native population that isn't replacing itself, that's the real problem.
Mm-hmm.
Then and you have a very high rate of immigration, then obviously the native population is being replaced. So in that sense, it's just a fact.
So replacement, you agree, is happening.
Yes.
But Great Replacement theory, which sort of alludes to some grand design, some reptile, Davos living
French.
monster. Yeah. French or German. You don't think that's actually?
It's a way. That's been used against me. One of the early reviews on this book said that I had embraced Great Replacement theory, and it once again, this is just a branding thing. It just means you're on the wrong side of immigration. That's all of this language. It's just that's a matter of being put in a category. It's just the little corral for the bad people, and this is an issue that seems to divide people more perfectly than any other I know, and it's absolute. There is no way. I mean, the only comparison that I know of is Trump, right? You have to be on one side or the other. There is no middle ground, and as soon as you use a certain word, you will brand yourself as in one camp or
Do you mean
another.
immigration or
in
replacement?
immigration?
Yeah.
In the same way that you cannot be middle of the road on Trump. You are either a Trump supporter or you're part of the good people. But there is no picking and choosing and saying this is what I try to do and I never get away with it. I like some of his policies. I don't like the way he's going about pursuing them.
Oh, you can't do that?
No,
Yeah.
forget it.
No, I've had trouble with that as well.
Right.
No, okay, so let's try and understand why that is the case, because it hasn't always been the case. Bernie Sanders, he, in his career, has been pro-borders, and there's certainly not... it was not always the case that the left was pro-open borders.
That's right, because the left wanted to protect the native workforce from unfair competition that will undercut their wages.
Yeah.
That used to be the standard Democratic line. But I guarantee you that even Bernie Sanders never says that anymore.
Right, he doesn't say it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's also the case that Obama deported millions. Biden I mean, he let in millions, but he also did some deportations. It seems that it's maybe the mixing of it with Trump that has made it so contentious issue. But why?
Well, I think it's not a coincidence that I instinctively reach for Trump as the only parallel I know of, because they've become the same. It is, and Trump has crystallized the absoluteness of the different camps, and there is no mixing, and there is no moral compromise. I mean, as soon as someone picks up my novel, and let's say a progressive picks up my novel and detects that the book is not perfectly supportive of mass immigration, I become the evil author. I mean, it's just, that's it.
Yeah. So why is it that that's become the case? Why is it that this is so emotive? Why is it that this is a profound moral sin to be anti-migration? Keep in mind, there are people on the left now who are losing their lives in the name of defending immigrants, or rather illegal immigrants. They're not just defending migration. They are defending illegal immigrants, criminals, because it's so important to them. I'm, of course, referring to Renee Good and
Alex
Pretty. That's right. So how do we get to this place?
Well, immigration in the modern era, in the the woke era, has always been in the mix. And I guess it first of all, it does connect with race. It connects with income inequality, another left-wing cause. It is about disadvantaged and therefore arguably victimized groups. It has to do with the whole idea of the white majority, the European majority, versus minorities, and of course the minorities are sacred, and that makes the white people the profane. I mean, it hits all of their favorite subjects, and in combining them in one issue, it's the lightning rod. This is the third rail. This is what's going to make them more hysterical than any other subject.
And yeah, so it's the sacred cow. It's combined everything. It's the chimera of all of these important issues for them. What do progressives get wrong about migration? What do they? Listeners now will understand quite clearly that you're a conservative, not least because you've expressed it explicitly. But what do they not get about immigration? Why are they wrong to make this? To think what they do, assuming that they are wrong?
I think they reject the whole concept of the nation state, and yet they don't take responsibility for that. Right? They don't actually come out and say, we don't want to have countries. Because I don't think that you can have a country without a border, particularly in a world that many other people want in. I mean, you can probably have a country without a border if a lot of you people want out, but not if a lot of people want in. That therefore your country becomes fundamentally meaningless. It's just, and it certainly becomes culturally meaningless because it's just a way station. You're just a place. It reduces country to geography, and conventionally, we think countries are more than geography. So I think that this is definitely connected. This pro-immigration is also connected to professed self-hatred in the West. Although I question that. That is, I think that may the self-hatred they're promoting, they exempt themselves from.
What does that mean?
In other words, if you hate yourself, you hate yourself. But these people hate other people in their
In the name of hating themselves.
in the name of so it's supposedly this hair shirtery that we have this terrible history. We had slavery. We murdered the Indians in the U.S. We have no moral claim to this land. But apropos of the Billie Eilish quote, they're not giving their houses away.
Right.
Right. And so it doesn't really apply to them. And I don't think that their emotional experience of promoting hatred of their own people and their own country is one of genuine self-hatred. They love themselves. They're very proud of themselves. It's a kind of vanity. So to call that self-hatred is wrong. It is actually a loathing for your fellow countrymen who don't agree with you.
Yeah, it's false humility.
Yes, it's a complete. It is a performance. It is acting out. It is acting out guilt rather than feeling it.
So why would they loathe their fellow countrymen?
Because they don't have these pure moral values, and they don't go through the theatrics of caring more about people who are disadvantaged than they do about themselves and their own group. I think the whole thing is emotionally very convoluted, because all this talk of shame, these people don't act as if they're experiencing shame. The emotions they exude, if you look at these ICE protests, if we're going to be contemporary about it, do you see them like,
Yes.
sorry, I feel so terrible. Please don't look at me. You get any of that? No, actually, if you feel shame, you stay home.
Yeah.
Right?
If you feel contrition, you stay quiet.
You stay home.
Yeah.
You basically go and crawl under the bed.
Yeah.
You do not want to be seen, and you hide. That's what real guilt feels like. We're constantly talking about white guilt, and I think it's complete rubbish. These people do not feel guilty in the slightest. They do not really think that they are responsible for slavery. They know they didn't kill any Indians, and they think that if everyone were like them, then the whole country would be righteous. They are big show-offs. And so this is just like wearing a T-shirt. It is not real guilt. Real guilt. There's a line in this book, real, when you're really feeling guilty for something, you want to crawl down a sewer manhole and pull the lid over your head.
Yeah.
So that's not when I look at the ICE protests, they're angry, but a certain quality of anger, right? A righteous anger. Righteous anger. This is vanity. This is more showing off. And the funny thing is, you say they're risking their lives. They're not consciously risking their lives. They're just fucking idiots, right? Because these are middle class, upper middle class people. They don't usually have run-ins with the police. For the most part, these are white people. So they're not really afraid of the police. They don't take them seriously. They don't take the fact that they're interfering with law enforcement, with officers who are armed, and that is dangerous and probably dumb. So I think they have a sense of entitlement and therefore of imperviousness. Like nothing's going to happen to me because I have right on my side. I don't sense that these people are experimenting with civil disobedience in the spirit of the old civil rights days. If nothing else,
They think they do.
They think that this is the tradition, but what happened with the protesters in the civil rights movement is that they willingly, passively gave over to being arrested. All right? They sat in the wrong part of the bus and expected to be arrested. They didn't hurt anybody. They didn't break any other laws aside from the ones that they were protesting. And they willingly accepted the consequences would be, having to give themselves up to the law. And that was the format. This is different.
So you think that they don't now, even after these two famous cases of Good being killed, I'd say it's her fault from what my analysis of it, and likewise Pretty, again, he shouldn't have been antagonizing ICE like that. But
yeah, and I think we should both. Not a bad time to clarify. While I think that they were both foolhardy, they did not deserve to be shot.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry. It doesn't go without saying, I think.
Yes, it was horrible to look at, and it does. There's something not right about it. Nevertheless, it is the case that had they not been antagonizing ICE like they were, it would never have happened. They put themselves in a stupid situation.
And also, the emotions that I'm talking about, and this is, as much as anything, that's my business.
Right. So this
they are hugely hostile, and spitting on these officers, calling them Nazis. They are enjoying themselves in that anger, and I feel quite strongly that they have cast themselves in this particular scenario as the center of the story, as the main actors, and the immigrants themselves are almost irrelevant. It's just an excuse. They're off to the side. This is ostensibly your purpose, but what they are enjoying is the direct conflict with authority, and going out on someone else's behalf. But it's more that they are the saviors. They are the righteous ones. This is one big, what's it called? White savior narrative. That's exactly what it is. It's what they claim is a terrible thing to do. It's what if I wrote a different kind of novel.
They think white savior narrative is bad.
It's terrible.
But they are actually acting it.
That's actually what they're doing. Yes.
And white savior being bad meaning, because it's...
in fiction, for at least the last 10 years, that's one of the things that progressive literary people have seized upon. That's if you have a white savior narrative, then you're casting the privileged white person as the hero who's rescuing the poor minorities, and that will not do. The white people don't get to perform that role. They have to be incidental, or you just have to write about little white people stories.
Right.
Don't include anyone else. That's another.
So they've sort of created a trap for themselves where they've said you can't do the white savior stuff, but then when it comes to this issue,
oh yes,
silence is also violence. So they have to do something. But best thing I think is just to avoid the contradiction, and not the best thing. They think the best thing, and that's the position they've got themselves into. Well, you say righteous anger.
Mm-hmm.
It's self-righteous anger, not righteous anger, right?
Well, to the people who are feeling it, it feels like righteous anger. To us, looking at them, it looks like self-righteous anger.
Yes. So that part of that emotion of theirs has been hijacked to this issue. And what would you think would be a healthier way for them, let's say in good faith, let's say they care about this issue and they want to do something about it. What would be a reasonable thing for them to do?
I don't know, write an op-ed.
How much do you think this comes down? What you've been describing is sort of narcissism, basically, writ large.
Yes.
How profound?
Well observed.
How deep is this? I think of Jonathan Haidt and in The Righteous Mind. talks about moral foundations theory and the sort of split between progressives and conservatives. And progressives tend, or liberals, I think he used that word rather, tend to over-index and sort of harm protection, and conservatives more on loyalty, group-based. I'm just trying to get to the where's the deepest we can go to find the sort of the emotional dividing line here. And I don't know if maybe we've gone as deep as we can, but I wonder if you had any insight there.
Well, definitely on the left on this issue, the position is that they're the caring people. They also embrace this notion of racial shame. And on the other side are the bigots, who are selfish, and also, well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but who are economically ignorant, because we need immigrants.
Right.
Right. And somehow I think the right on this issue is cast as the people of the past, right? The who are increasingly old and irrelevant, because the future is young and foreign. There's no sense. I mean, this part I think is genuine. That on the left, they don't really believe in their countries.
Yeah.
They don't derive any sense of meaning from their nationality, except in the negative. And a lot of the progressive world is negative. It's all against. But in a positive sense, there is nothing. The only positive is in the joy of organizing this self-hatred, this fake self-hatred. There is no. There's a hole where the pride should be, and I don't think that can be a basis for a successful culture, and I don't think it's really at the basis psychologically for a successful self. These people are often miserable, and in fact, the left tends to poll as, especially on the female side, as much more unhappy than the rest of the country. And I really think it has to do with this sense of void at the center of the ideology. We talk about how the woke thing has become a religion, but it definitely doesn't provide a kind of spiritual sustenance that traditional religion did. There's something missing at the center of this ideology that just eats people up.
Yeah, I definitely want to come back to the male-female divide there. But this whole is interesting because the inverse, maybe, if you looked at like Nazi Germany, it would be that nationalism has filled the hole of God, and that the nation state, and a pure nation state, was the motivation behind everything. And what you're describing here is this sort of anti-nation state has filled.
Yes.
So it's like it's a black hole inversion of, it's not quite Nazism, but it's sort of, it is, I mean, I do think this comes back to the Second World War, and we've explored this a lot on the show, and Karl Popper. And
yeah, I've seen any number of those episodes, actually.
So if you think I'm wrong, do challenge me on that. But it seems to me that's where the anti-nation state seems to occur. It's curious.
Yes, and that's why we started idolizing these international organizations.
Yes.
So I am much in concurrence with your reading of that.
I find it strange that happened in America, because it was American nationalism that defeated Nazism, or it was the American nation state, obviously with its allies in Britain, Russia, and around the world. But I can understand why the Germans would have had that reaction, understandable, but it doesn't make sense why the American spirit would have taken a knock. Do you have any insight into that?
Well, I mean, this is bigger than we're going to get into, but obviously it has to do with the growth of the progressive movement that really got going in my younger days. Seems to have come to its insane peak in the last 10 years, but it's been going on my whole life. And, I was a part of it to begin with.
You were part of the problem?
Oh, yes, I was a part of the problem.
How so?
Oh, no, when I was a teenager, I wore beads and I went to anti-Vietnam protests. Actually, that was the one point on which I think I was probably sound. It was a crummy war, and it was a waste of American resources, and let's face it, we lost. So, yeah, and my older brother, was in line for the draft, so I felt that I had a dog in this fight. Although I don't think that metaphor is very kind to him. But I grew up on the left. My parents were liberal Democrats.
So when was your Damascene moment? When did you turn?
I don't think it was a single moment, but I didn't really start questioning my political upbringing until I was in my early 30s. I moved to Northern Ireland, and that really made a conservative out of me.
Did it really?
Yeah.
What about Northern Ireland made you into a conservative?
I hated the IRA, virtually on sight. And by the way, I arrived there with no opinions about the place whatsoever. I was completely ignorant. But I was actually a blank slate. There is such a thing. And I just found the IRA, the people in it, their rhetoric, and not to mention what they were doing, completely repulsive and unjustifiable. What the terrible injustice that they were fighting was comparatively trivial, considering what they were willing to do to press their cause. And in the main, the discrimination against Catholics by the time I arrived in 1987 had been, if anything, overcompensated for, and yet they weren't giving it up.
So why did that make you a conservative rather than, let's say, a
well,
unionist?
Partly because Democrats in the U.S. were often very pro-IRA. It was considered a liberation movement, and so I thought, well, that's just morally off.
Right.
I have the same response to the Democratic response to October 7th. It's morally off. Sorry, this does not compute. Why are you backing this? Why can't you see that this is disgusting?
Yeah.
And that helped of a separation. And I also on a completely different issue fell out with my father on Clinton's welfare reforms, because my father was indignant over Clinton's welfare reforms. Clinton was trying to really cut the welfare rolls and get people back to work. And I thought that was great. And my father threatened to never give another dime to the Democratic Party again. And I thought, this doesn't make sense. This is ultimately condescending, because my father was a workaholic, and he took great pride in his professional achievements. Why would you wish worklessness for other people?
And why do you think he did? What was his thinking? How had he got to that place?
Well, it's the politics of pity. I don't think that's I did not think that was well thought through. And if he really felt compassion for people on the welfare rolls, he'd want them off the welfare rolls. That is not a dignified existence. It is not a rich existence. It's emotionally impoverished, as well as keeping you at a certain level of financial poverty.
So you want to create incentives to go the other way.
Yeah.
Can I ask about the male-female divide on this? It's not apparent or self-evident to me that women would be progressive on the issue of immigration. In fact, the opposite. Because if a woman evolutionary has evolved to protect an infant, and we see, certainly in Britain, that it is young children, young girls that are being systematically raped, abused, you'd think that mothers, and now there are movements, by the way, there's the pink mothers up in Epping, but you'd think that mothers would be more conservative and women would be more conservative in having a strong border protecting the vulnerable in their society. And yet it looks like polling shows women are increasingly, certainly young women, harder and harder left. In fact, people have been claiming it's young men who are going further and further right. But over the last few years, there's some reports, the FT did a report on this, that it's actually the women who, not just in the West, but in South Korea and other parts of the world, the women who are going much further left. What's your take and understanding of that sort of, to me, that inconsistency?
I do think that in terms of maternal instinct, it's inverted, because you would think that you would care most about the usual, care about your immediate family, then your larger family, your town and region, out to your own country, and then out to all of humanity, maybe. But that all humanity thing is less intense. The intense sense of protection starts close to home, and this is instead starts out there. That's where all the intense feelings are. Now, I come back again to my analysis of this emotionally. Ultimately, the people out there are completely irrelevant. It's all about the self. Right? That's where the passion comes from, the self, and also intra-group rivalry, competition between women, for example, over who's more righteous, who cares more, who's the purest and goodest person, right? And it doesn't. It's, look at the Palestinian thing. What do these people have to do with the Palestinians? Nothing. They know nothing about Palestinians, right? They don't know anything about the Israeli conflict. It's just an excuse. But together, this is one of my only explanations, because ultimately, of course, it is fundamentally baffling. But they seem to feel a sense of group identity when they get together and have all these protests. So it gives them a sense of belonging to each other.
And meaningfulness, yeah.
Yeah. And these are people who clearly crave a sense of purpose and think they found one.
Do you think it's linked to increased childlessness?
Probably. Isn't having children the ultimate sense of purpose? It calls you to care for these people. You're the only one who's going to, if you're married, your husband, you're the only people who are going to take care of these people. They need you to survive. And that calls you to a primitive kind of loyalty that a lot of the women we're talking about do not enjoy. And, I have found a sense of purpose in my work. But everyone doesn't have that. And I think there is a gratification in being that person who takes a genuinely they're always talking about the vulnerable, but there's nothing more vulnerable than a child, and protects that child, feeds that child, nourishes and teaches that child, turns and helps turn that person into a functional adult, ideally. That's a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
If you have just a kind of regular job, that you don't care very much about. I don't think that substitutes. So yeah, I think widespread childlessness is not unrelated.
One would think that when women, I don't know what the numbers are for Britain, but for the States, but in Britain now, something like 25% of women are not having children by 30. No, sorry, over half of women don't have their first child until they're over 30, half of whom don't have a child at all. So a quarter of women now.
Not always by choice, actually. Some of it is just too much delay, and then, and so it just doesn't happen.
Yes, quite. That's a lie I think the progressives told women, is that you can wait and wait and wait.
Yeah, and there's always IVF. They don't realize how complicated, expensive, and often failed it is.
Yeah, that's been a terrible lie that progressives have told women. And maybe part of the pushback is the women don't realize, forgive me if this sounds off coming from a man, but maybe these young women have been robbed of something and they are reacting, they don't realize how they're reacting against that phenomenon. Is that a bit too much of a stretch?
I think women have been told one way or another, in that sneaky way that cultures work, that motherhood is low prestige. It has no status. It's what you resort to when you're not really important. I mean, that's a terrible thing to have brought about.
It's evil. It's the highest prestige thing.
It should be, but we can say that until we're blue in the face. It doesn't make people feel it. I didn't have kids. That would have been an ingredient. I think it would have been an ingredient in my not having children. It was low prestige, and I wanted to make my mark. I did not want to spend my time wiping up sick when, I had what I regarded as a higher calling. And I think this is an ingredient in the people who do decide not to have kids. And that percentage has gone way up. Just like, why would I want to do that? It's grunt work. And that is that having evolved that perception, that's a collective sin that our culture has portrayed motherhood, and I think people pick this up very early as just a completely low rent job. So and as a job that will never get any gratitude, and if anything, will be punished. Especially, right now we have something like 10% of the U.S. population has gone no contact with at least one member of their family, if not the entire family. Yeah, it's a thing.
So it's beyond just having children. It's the family itself is breaking up at every level.
Yes, and the sense that a lot of this is parent-child, obviously, and so it's the kid who's going no contact with the parents. And talk about thankless. When that's that commonplace, it makes parenthood seem like even an even riskier proposition than it used to be.
So it self-perpetuates.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that from? Is that sort of hyper-individualism? It's sort of the
oh yes, it's all about self-involvement. It's the constant. I'm afraid our school systems have encouraged this. Our conversation is wandering a bit, but the whole focus on the self. I think a lot of the reason that depression and anxiety become so prevalent is that they're the consequence of looking inward all the time not finding very much, and that's depressing and makes you anxious. I mean, I think our whole model of growing up, the whole idea of character has changed, and we tend to think of people as now pre-extant. Character is something that you discover. No, it isn't. I think we need to go back to an earlier version of what it means to become someone, to grow up, to have an identity. It's something you build. That used to be a commonplace expression, building character. You went through character building exercises. And that means conceptually that you do not start out as something marvelous in particular that you can discover or unearth. You start out as kind of all over the place, and maybe you have certain proclivities, but you need to firm up. You have to learn to do things. You have to learn about the world. It's an outward experience, which makes you into someone in particular.
Yeah.
And so the way you create an identity is not sitting around worrying about how you feel all the time, but going out and doing something and meeting people and learning a new skill and humbling yourself in relation to all that you don't know.
Yeah.
In order that you may come to know some of it. And I really think that we have created misery by making people chronically and pathologically self-conscious.
And safetyism is what sort of it's the opposite
same
now.
thing.
It's that we prioritize safety.
Yeah. So you have it rather than go out into the world, encounter other people, you put a fence around yourself and make sure that nothing gets in. Oh, great.
Do you not see the irony in what we're saying? So safety around themselves, but not around
the country.
Around the country.
But it makes perfect sense. If you're completely self-absorbed, you don't care about the country.
Right. Okay. So actually, it's they put themselves. That's what they put in that black
I'm
hole.
afraid that that's at the core of the whole progressive mentality. It is obsession with the self. It's all about a kind of vanity, and at the same time, you're dealing with people who are actively miserable, who keep looking for something inside themselves that isn't there because you would need to go out and build it. It's not something that is discoverable. And at the same time, these are people who need a sense of belonging. They're destroying all the natural institutions to which one might belong. And so they need their sense of belonging. They need a sense of purpose. So, and I'm sympathetic with the need for a sense of purpose.
Yes. So what we're kind of going through is the individualist endgame. This is Enlightenment individualism at its. We've got right to the border.
And you're dealing with a kind of absolute freedom which moves into nihilism. Right? I mean, this whole, I think the whole concept of identity now that and especially look at what's happened in relation to sex. The 150 genders or how many they're counting now.
151, you bigot.
Oh, sorry. I probably left someone out. And the constant pushing against any kind of norm. So it's this. Again, as you said, the radical individualism. There are no limits. There are no boundaries. We make fun of people behind the trans activism. Oh, does that mean that you can decide one day that you're a bunny or a chair? And it's not. We're really at the point where that's not even absurd. It's not. I want to be a chair. Well, yeah, you can be a chair, and we'll sit on you. We'll validate your existence, your identity. But when you're dealing with this kind of absolutely no holds barred freedom, no norms, people get lost.
Yeah.
It's frightening, and it's scary, and it's, what you're dealing with is in permitting everything. You have formlessness, and it's the opposite of giving you an answer. It's I'm coming back. We come back to our subject. You have no boundaries. People need boundaries, and they need norms. In fact, you need norms even to be a weirdo.
Yes, quite.
No norms, no weirdo. I was a weirdo as a kid, and I would be lost as a child now because, I wouldn't have that identity. It's not available to anyone anymore.
Yes, you need that space.
I mean, wearing purple hair ain't interesting.
Yes, if everyone's wearing purple hair.
Right.
You would think then that when women end up having children, if they have children, that they might change back and swing back to the right. I don't know the data on this, but there was a meme going around that was quite funny this weekend, which is that a young girl had her friend pass her baby to hold her baby. And this young girl young woman, I should say, she was probably in her late 20s. And she burst out into tears and was like, she'd never wanted a child. And then she was like, I want one.
Wow.
And someone joked that this is all you have to do to factory reset a woman is put a baby in her arms. And the joke was that all you have to do to factory reset a man is shove him down a foxhole. But I wondered then, why, because I know I spent a lot of time in New York, I live there. It's not just childless women, it's also mothers.
Mm-hmm.
In these areas. I imagine Minnesota, there's plenty of mothers who also take this position, this anti-borders position that we've been exploring. And I wonder why is it just cognitive dissonance that they don't understand, they don't see the danger that that open borders poses to their infant? Or how can we understand the sort of the liberal mother?
Well, there's a certain naivete there in the sacralization of the minority. Then they become harmless. If they're sacred, why would they be dangerous? So the Democrats...
So it's ideology.
Yeah. The Democrats are always playing down the level of criminality. I think in the U.S., they've definitely fixed the figures in order to minimize it, because it's important that these are just innocent, lovely people seeking a better life, hence my title. And that...
Because it is a mother in
yes,
yeah.
Yes, and
who takes in
the mother in my book is typical of the kind of people we're talking about. Although I actually think she's more reasonable and rational and less screamy than most of her counterparts in real life. But she takes a migrant into her home and alienates her own son in doing so. He's more conservative than she is, and he I think he feels a little bit in the book. He feels a little bit replaced. The migrant comes in and she's a paragon. She cleans the house all the time. The house starts reeking of bleach. She does all the cooking and shopping. She's bubbly and lovely, and the son is surly and incommunicative. And so she becomes the better child, the better adoptive child. And there's a constant parallel in the book because obviously she's therefore representative of the new Americans who are better Americans than the native population. In fact, there's a dialogue in which the Honduran immigrant Martine says, I make a better American than you do. I'm hardworking. I'm what Americans basically used to be like, and you're a layabout, just metaphorically and literally spending your inheritance and not building anything. And she's got a point. Actually, the book is much more balanced than it's getting credit for, because the usual suspects on the progressive side spot that this is not a book that is wholly enthusiastic about mass migration, and therefore it is an evil book. But the truth is,
how dare you not produce propaganda?
The native population does not get off lightly in this novel, since it's germane to our population, our conversation. There are 3 grown kids in this novel, and none of them have children. And this is another thing that the immigrant points out. Like, sorry, but in something like 70 years, all of your family is going to be dead. Who's going to get the house? And the son says, okay, well, let me have it for the next 70 years, and I'll leave you the keys. But that's the country. The house is the country. And if we're not, and if we are not willing to give birth to and raise another generation, then other people are going to take our place, and we deserve it.
So, where Michel Houellebecq in his famous book Soumission ends with the Islamization of France and playing into those conspiracy theories, you're actually playing into the Great Replacement's conspiracy theory.
Ultimately, yes. But that's just being practical. And it also means that part of your responsibility of maintaining your civilization, your nation, is to maintain your borders. I mean, this performative shame that we were talking about, it does have real-life consequences. It does mean, we have no right to keep anyone out of the country because we're so unworthy. And anyone from outside the country is worth more than we are, because we have done terrible things in our history. Now, they may not actively feel the kind of emotions that go with genuine shame and guilt, but the kind of policies that they are advocating do express genuine shame and guilt. That is, and this is intensely the case in the United States. Nation of immigrants, we have no right. The progressives really think we have no right to keep anyone out. Anyone who wants to come to the United States should be able to come there. Of course, at the same time, they maintain it's a horrible country. But then you let all these deserving, lovely people to come into the horrible country. You would think that you would want to keep them out just in their interest. Right?
It's also strange because America, I think, is the most generous country in the world when it comes to immigration. Something like
Absolutely.
1 million legal migrants every year into America.
Not to mention, the millions of people who came in under the Biden administration.
Yes, quite.
Illegally.
That's often forgotten. I think it's a lot higher than quote-unquote liberal countries like Canada. Britain are giving it a run for its money now, if you include illegals.
Actually, if you multiply it out, because Britain's about the fifth the size of the U.S., the UK is giving the U.S. a run for its money in terms of how many immigrants they're bringing in.
Yeah, that's right. I wanted to ask about what sort of the conservative fallacies are, but I think one has been implicit in our conversation, which is that if those who, let's say, fear Great Replacement, what are they doing exactly about having babies? And I would maybe say, look at the conservative politicians here, although many conservative politicians argue for migration, for the economy and to grow GDP. But leaving aside those ones who I think are sort of part of the progressive worldview, shouldn't they be doing more, particularly around the economy, to encourage women and families, firstly to exist as families, but also then to have children? I've just come back from Hungary, and there they are trying, and they've had some success, and it's been difficult. I could certainly go into detail on that. But is that the blind spot of the Conservatives? It's like they're anti-immigration, but they're not actually pro have lots of babies. Why are families not having 7, 8, 9 children like they were 100 years ago?
I don't know how much difference it would make if the Conservative Party told you to have babies. And in fact, it might have the opposite effect. You're probably familiar with the experience of economic incentives for having children. They don't work. I mean, the whole pronatal policy, about all it's ever seems to accomplish is bringing forward of people who were going to have children anyway. They have them a little sooner. That's about it. And then the effect subsides. It doesn't. People constantly tell you, especially in the likes of London, I'd love to have a family, but we can't afford it, or we can't buy a house. But in general, that ends up being excuse making, because when this has happened before and you offer people money or tax exempt status or free childcare, there are all kinds of incentives you can do. In this country, gosh, even permitting joint filing for couples in taxes would make a huge difference. So it would be easier for one of the parents to stay home, and you wouldn't, and the parent who worked wouldn't be taxed as if it was just one person. You could equal them out. You can still do that in the States. And that was changed here, first of all, to make the state more money, and then also to push women into work. So but all you can come up with various policies that you would think would make it more attractive to have children. But if you look at the previous experiences in other countries with these aggressively pro-natalist economic and tax policy, they don't work.
I'm going to challenge you on that, because I don't think you're right.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, Hungary's having a little success.
So Hungary had pretty good success until the beginning of the Ukraine war, and then they had an inflation crisis, and it actually seems to be the drop in child birth rates has coincided with the inflation that happened, and so it seemed to be pretty linked to economics. The argument against me, in favor of you, is that actually, if you look at serious improvements in child birth rates going up, it's religious communities,
yes,
particularly Israel. But in Israel, it's not just Orthodox communities. Even the more secular Israelis are having, on average, three or four. Where in the Orthodox, it's like 7 or 8 or something like that. So it does seem to be a cultural issue, which I think is probably, if you change the culture, if we could sort the cultural issue out.
Well, that's why what I'm talking about in relation to status is meaningful. There is a high status to having children in Israel, right? You get a lot of affirmation. People love children. They're not seen, not heard. They're not just an inconvenience that's going to make noise on the train. Or babies screaming on the plane.
Boom. I need to get you some noise cancelling earbuds.
Right. No. And if you have lots of children, you are admired. Yeah. You're admired. And you simply cannot say that about the U.S. or the UK. If you have more than 3 children in either of our countries, people think you're a little weird. They like, what's your problem? Or are you, imitating Elon Musk? Or it has to do with the norms. There still are some of them. And the norm is to have very few children or none. That's the norm.
Yes.
And so it's like having more children than that is, what's your problem? But, we do not have pro-family cultures now.
No.
And if you look at, I've not done any analysis of films and that and TV, but we don't have that much of the kind of Brady Bunch stuff that I grew up with. Did you grow up with the Brady Bunch? Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, it's a kind of corny TV show where two people who were widower and widow got together, and they each have 3 kids.
Right.
And so they have 6
Yeah.
children.
Right.
So
So
that's a very pro-family show.
You go back to sort of films about the 1950s, and it would be that the prejudice is against the childless mother or the childless woman, and now we flipped it. Is that sort of another version of caring for the other so much that we feel so sorry for the childless mother that we've gone all the way now where the childless mother is more normal? Oh, sorry, childless woman. I'm being silly. Sorry.
Yeah, it used to be that the barren woman was an object of pity, and that is no longer. In fact, back when I was promoting We Need to Talk About Kevin, which gets blamed for any number of people deciding not to have children, that I had to say, hold on here. I think that the fact that I don't have children means I am not subject to stigma enough. We have removed the stigma, and that was almost 25 years ago. And even then, I didn't feel that anyone was criticizing me or felt sorry for me. I didn't get pressure from my parents that I should have been having children. They thought on balance, I probably shouldn't have kids, right? That's my own parents. I didn't feel any social pressure. I didn't go to parties and have people say, oh, you don't have any children. None of that. It was fine. And it was already entering the period where having chosen to not have children was becoming normal. And it was not being questioned. And so we've gone through more than a generation since then where the fertility rate has continued to come down. And that's because we have changed the norm, and we don't we're not subjecting women. I mean, I'm not saying they should be, but maybe a little, maybe not outright stigma, but maybe
smidgen of shame,
a little sense of social pressure, right? That's in the positive direction toward motherhood, that you have to resist in order to remain childless. But because if the culture doesn't change, then we're living in a civilization which is going to start to wither. And I think that would be a pity.
Yeah. I was going to ask, how do we change that culture around? A little bit of
I guess that's what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah. Well, identifying the problems is a good start, I guess. We've covered a lot of ground, and we could talk for hours more. Before I invite you over to the Substack to talk about your experience in the arts, because I think we might have some common experience there, is there anything else on this topic, on this matter, that you think worth noting? And where can people find a better life your latest novel, your latest piece of work, which has got the badge of honor of being skewered by the New York Times and all the progressives alike?
Well, you can get it just about anywhere you get books. Amazon, bookstores, widely available. HarperCollins has made sure of that.
Good.
So it is one of the only novels I know of that represents the perspective of the native-born population. The standard, especially in literary fiction, has been to tell the story of immigration exclusively from the perspective of the immigrant. And I think that makes sense. The immigrant has more of a journey, a quest, a structure to what he or she is about. You're going somewhere, you're facing obstacles, probably put at some disadvantage. That's a formula for a very sympathetic character. The native-born population, at best, in novels about immigration, have been a mere backdrop. They're not going anywhere. They're literally not going anywhere. So they might seem uninteresting, but I can testify, as somebody who has been faithfully reading the comments under articles about immigration in the Daily Telegraph, there is an enormous amount of rage in the UK over this issue. It is, people feel they haven't been listened to, that their votes have been ignored, that their feelings are not only unimportant, but they have been demonized. To not want your country to radically transform ethnically and demographically has been cast as bigoted and unacceptable. This is an issue. But I believe that immigration touches very primitive psychological and anthropological red buttons. And this is not a problem for just Westerners or white people. It is what all people, humans, are like. And you find it's not even a racial issue. You find that when you bring in very large numbers of people from elsewhere to just about any country, the people who live there don't like it. Small numbers of people, interesting, nice ethnic restaurants, but large numbers of people in a short period of time makes the people who live there already angry. And that's been the case in South Africa in relation to the Zimbabweans, Colombia in relation to the Venezuelans, Nigeria kicked out something like 2 million Ghanaians who had immigrated into the country. This is not black and white. It is not the West versus the rest. It is what people are like. And you can say we shouldn't be that way, but it doesn't change the fact that that's the way we are.
Yeah.
That's the way everybody is. And Westerners have been told explicitly and implicitly that they may not feel these emotions, that they may not feel resentful, that their neighborhoods have completely transformed, that they walk down the street and nobody is speaking their language, that they do not feel that they're in their own home any longer. All of that, not acceptable. You have to get with the program. You have to regard it as wonderful.
Yeah.
Diversity is our strength. And, fiction has participated in this, and I'm pushing back a little. That's why I'm getting so much stick.
Yeah. Well, it comes right back to the beginning of our conversation about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who you just look at the national pile-on he got for saying,
he should never have apologized.
Well, he apologized for how people felt about what he said, not what he said.
Yeah, well, that's a fine distinction that is lost on most people.
Possibly. Although having been through such, not quite the scale of pile-on, I didn't have the Prime Minister coming after me. I understand why some people feel defensive. But, Lionel Shriver, it's been an absolute pleasure. We did go there. We managed to get deep into the issues that I was hoping to explore with you. And
Good. You're one of my favorite podcasters.
I'm so flattered that you listened.
So
Genuinely,
I'm delighted to appear with you. And I look forward to many more of these podcasts with other people. You get great guests.
Well, I hope you'll come back onto the show. But let's go over to the Substack, where some of our Substackers have questions for you, and I want to talk to you about the arts. So, Lionel Shriver, I encourage people to go read A Better Life, but otherwise, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Remigration, which is the politically correct term for mass deportations.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you, Lionel, on that issue?
It is very hard to get people off your territory once you let them in.
Why is it considered fine for Hindus, Jews, Muslims, etc. to have in-group preferences, but racist when white people express the same in-group preferences?
If we're going to not just permit but celebrate the continuation of other cultures within ours, we should at least be permitted to celebrate our own culture.
Thanks for watching The Winston Marshall Show with the phenomenal Lionel Shriver. Head over to winstonmarshall.co.uk right now for an extended conversation between me and Lionel, where we explore not just what's going on in the arts, but her thoughts on remigration, integration, and much more. That's all at winstonmarshall.co.uk. Otherwise, remember to press subscribe if you want to support the show. And until next time, be well.